I'm Nina, 29 years old, and I live in Willow Creek, a town that feels like it's been painted with soft, gentle strokes. It's not too big, not too small, just the right size to feel like you belong. The streets are lined with tall trees, their leaves a vibrant green that rustles in the breeze, and the air often carries the sweet scent of blooming flowers or the earthy smell of rain-soaked grass. People here are kind. They'll smile as they pass you on the sidewalk, maybe stop to chat about the weather, the local farmer's market, or the way the town's old oak tree seems to bloom brighter every spring. I worked at a flower shop called Gable's Blooms, a cozy little storefront with a green awning and a bell that jingled every time the door opened. Each morning, I'd unlock the shop, step inside, and be enveloped by the fragrance of roses, lilies, and daisies, their petals soft and vibrant like tiny bursts of hope. I'd spend my days arranging bouquets, trimming stems, and helping customers pick the perfect flowers for birthdays, anniversaries, or just because. It was simple work, but it felt like I was weaving beauty into the world, giving people something to hold on to, something to make them smile. I lived alone in a small apartment above the shop, up a narrow staircase that creaked underfoot. It was a modest space. A cramped kitchen with a blue teapot that whistled too loudly, a living room with a worn couch and a coffee table scarred with water rings, and a bedroom with a single window that let in the morning sun, casting golden patterns across my quilt. I'd made it my own with small touches. A framed photo of my mom and me laughing at a county fair, a string of fairy lights draped over the bookshelf, a vase of wildflowers I'd gathered by the creek. At night, I'd listen to the quiet hum of Willow Creek settling down, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, the soft hum of a car passing by, the whisper of leaves brushing against my window. I thought I was happy, though there were moments of loneliness, the kind that creeps in when you're eating dinner alone, the only sound the clink of your fork, or when you're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, wishing for someone to share, the silence. But I had a dream, one I kept tucked away like a precious secret. I wanted to open a cafe, a warm, inviting place where people could sip coffee, read books, and breathe in the scent of fresh flowers. I imagined wooden tables, each with a tiny vase of daisies, shelves lined with novels and poetry, a chalkboard menu offering specials like Nina's cinnamon mocha or lavender shortbread. I saved for it, month by month, slipping every spare dollar into a bank account I called my future fund. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a quiet promise of a life I could build, a light to guide me forward. Life was steady, a rhythm I'd grown used to, until Alex walked into the flower shop one bright afternoon. The sun was streaming through the windows, making the glass vases sparkle like they held tiny rainbows. He said he needed flowers for his mother's birthday, his voice warm and smooth, like a melody you want to keep listening to. He had dark hair that curled slightly at the ends, eyes the color of amber glowing in sunlight, and a smile that felt like it could chase away any shadow. I helped him choose a bouquet, pink roses and white lilies, tied with a soft yellow ribbon, and he lingered, asking about the flowers, their names, how I decided which ones went together. "You've got a real eye for color," he said, leaning against the counter, his gaze steady and kind, like he was seeing me, really seeing me. I felt my cheeks warm, a shy laugh slipping out. No one had ever said that to me, not with such sincerity, such ease. He stayed for nearly an hour, talking about Willow Creek, how he'd just moved here, how he loved the way the town felt like it was holding its breath, peaceful and still. His words flowed like a river, and I found myself talking more than I usually did, my usual shyness melting under the warmth of his attention. He started coming back, almost like he'd set a schedule. Sometimes he'd buy flowers, a small bunch of daisies, a single sunflower that he'd twirl in his hands. But other times, he'd just stop by to chat, leaning against the counter while I swept up stray petals or rearranged a display. He told me he worked from home, something with computers, though he was vague about the details, waving it off with a laugh and a comment about how boring it was. He liked Willow Creek, he said, because it was a place where you could think, where the world didn't rush you, where you could notice the small things, like the way the creek sparkled at dusk, or the way the town's old clock tower was always a few minutes slow. I liked the way he saw the world, the way he noticed details I'd overlooked, the way he made the ordinary feel extraordinary. One afternoon, as I was closing up, locking the door and flipping the sign to closed, I told him about my cafe dream. It slipped out, maybe because he asked what I wanted from life with such genuine curiosity. His eyes locked on mine, or maybe because his presence made me feel safe, like I could share a piece of myself without fear. I expected him to nod politely, but he leaned forward, his face lighting up. "Nina, that's incredible," he said, his voice full of conviction. "A cafe with books and flowers, that's the kind of place people would come back to again and again. You'd make it special. You've got a warm heart, the kind that makes a place feel like home." His words sank deep, like rain into parched earth. No one had ever spoken to my dream like that. Like it wasn't just a wish, but something I could build, something real. I felt seen, truly seen, and it made my heart ache with possibility, with hope. We started spending more time together, our lives weaving together, like threads in a tapestry. After I'd lock up the shop, we'd walk along the creek that wound through town, the water shimmering in the fading light, our shadows stretching long across the grass. We'd talk about everything. Movies we loved, songs that made us feel something, stories from our pasts. He told me about growing up in a bustling city, how he'd climb onto his apartment's fire escape to watch the stars, pretending he was somewhere quieter, somewhere like Willow Creek. I shared memories of my childhood here, like the time I tried to plant a garden in my backyard and ended up with a patch of stubborn weeds that my mom called Nina's wild jungle. We'd laugh, our voices mingling with the sound of the water, the air cool against our skin. Some nights, we'd go to the little cinema on Oak Street, sharing a bucket of popcorn, our shoulders brushing in the dark as we whispered about the plot or made up silly endings. Other times, we'd cook dinner in my apartment, fumbling with recipes, the kitchen filling with the smell of garlic, olive oil, or slightly burned bread when we got distracted by a story or a laugh. Alex was funny, kind, smart. He'd tease me about my terrible knife skills, then step behind me, his hand gently guiding mine as we chopped vegetables, his breath warm against my neck. He made me feel special, like I was more than just Nina, the quiet girl who arranged flowers, like I was someone worth knowing, worth loving. I'd always been shy, keeping people at a distance, my heart guarded behind a wall of caution. But with Alex, that wall crumbled. I could be myself, no pretenses, no need to hide. I fell in love, deeply, completely. The kind of love that changes how you see the world, that makes every moment brighter, sharper, sweeter. The flowers in the shop smelled richer, the sun felt warmer on my skin, even the mundane tasks of trimming stems or sweeping the floor felt lighter, like I was carrying a secret joy in my chest. He said he loved me too, his voice soft as he held my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles, his eyes locked on mine. "You're honest, Nina. Good. I've never met anyone like you," he said. And I believed him. Every word, every look. I trusted him with every piece of me, my heart open wide, vulnerable but unafraid. He felt like the missing part of my life, the one I'd been waiting for without knowing it. We'd sit on my couch, dreaming out loud, about the cafe, about trips we'd take to the coast or the mountains, about a future where we were together, building something beautiful. I'd close my eyes and see it. Us in our cafe, him teasing me about my coffee-making skills, me arranging flowers on the tables, customers smiling as they sipped their drinks. It felt so real, so close. Like all I had to do was reach out and touch it. My cafe dream became our dream, a shared vision that bound us closer. Alex was excited, his enthusiasm like a spark that ignited my own. "Nina's Garden Cafe," he'd say, sketching ideas on napkins, wooden tables with checkered cloths, soft jazz playing in the background, a counter lined with fresh-baked pastries, and a coffee machine that hissed and steamed. He knew about business, he said, and computers, things I didn't understand but trusted him to handle. He'd talk about profit margins, customer flow, marketing ideas, his words confident and sure, like he'd done this before. He offered to help, and I was grateful, overwhelmed by how much he believed in me, in us, in this dream we were building together. We started looking at rental spaces, poking around small shops with for lease signs, imagining where the counter would go, where the bookshelves would stand, where the sunlight would fall in the morning. He'd point out details I'd miss, like the way a window framed the town square, or the sturdy bones of an old building that could be brought back to life. He helped me draft a business plan, scribbling numbers and ideas on a notepad, explaining terms like startup costs and break-even points in a way that didn't overwhelm me, his voice patient and encouraging. My savings, built slowly over years of early mornings, skipped coffees, and careful budgets, felt like enough with him by my side. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a start. And Alex made it feel like we were on the cusp of something extraordinary, something that could change our lives. One evening, as we sat on my couch with mugs of chamomile tea, the steam curling in the air, he told me he'd found the perfect place. It was an old shop near the town square, with big windows that let in streams of light and a faded sign above. The door that hinted at its history. It needed work, new paint, some repairs to the floor, maybe a new roof. But the rent was reasonable, and the location was ideal, right where people walked by every day, their footsteps a steady rhythm. "We have to move fast," he said, his voice urgent but kind, his hand resting on mine, his fingers warm against my skin. "A place like this won't stay empty long. Someone else will snap it up if we don't act now." The deposit was steep, more than I'd saved, a number that made my stomach twist. He looked serious, his eyes steady, almost pleading, like he was carrying the weight of our dream as much as I was. "I've got money, Nina, but it's tied up in investments right now," he said, his voice calm but earnest. "It'll take a few weeks to get it out. If you put in your savings, I can borrow a little to cover the rest. We'll pay the deposit now, and when my funds come through, we'll handle the repairs, the furniture, everything we need to make this place ours." He pulled out his phone, showing me photos of the shop, dusty but full of potential, with wide wooden floors, high ceilings, and a small back room that could be a cozy office. He had paperwork, too, a rental agreement with the landlord's name, terms typed out neatly, official-looking letterhead that made it feel real. I could see it so clearly, the tables scattered with books, the flowers brightening every corner, the coffee machine humming, customers laughing over their drinks. Our dream was so close I could taste it, feel it in the air like a promise. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He loved me. He'd spent months by my side, planning our future, laughing with me, holding me, making me believe we were in this together, that we were building something unbreakable. So I went to the bank the next day, my heart pounding as I filled out the withdrawal form, the pen trembling in my hand. I took out nearly all my savings, every dollar I'd scrimped and saved, every dream I'd poured into that account, every early morning at the shop, every skipped dinner out, every moment I'd chosen hope over comfort. My hands shook as I handed him the envelope, the weight of it heavy in my palms. But it wasn't fear, it was excitement, the thrill of standing on the edge of something new, something ours. "For our cafe," I said, my voice catching as I smiled, my eyes bright with possibility. He hugged me tightly, his arms strong, his breath warm against my ear, his voice a whisper. "Thank you for trusting me, Nina. This is the start of everything. You won't regret this." He kissed me, soft and sure, his lips lingering on mine, and I felt like I was floating, like the world was opening up, like every dream I'd ever had was finally within reach. He said he'd pay the deposit that afternoon and call me with the good news, his smile wide as he tucked the envelope into his jacket, his eyes sparkling with what I thought was love. I went back to the flower shop, practically dancing, my head full of plans. What color to paint the walls, what flowers to put on the tables, what name to paint on the sign. I told Mrs. Gable about the space, my words tumbling out, my voice bright with excitement. She smiled, but her eyes held a flicker of worry, a caution I didn't want to see. "That's a lot of money, Nina. You're sure about this?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. I nodded, glowing with certainty, my heart full. Alex is handling it. We're doing this together. That evening, I waited for his call. I made dinner, pasta with a simple tomato sauce, his favorite, the Isier kind we'd made together, laughing over spilled wine. I set the table with care, using the good plates, lighting a candle I'd bought at the market, its flame flickering softly. I checked my phone, expecting a text, a missed call, anything. 7 o'clock came and went. 8, 9, No call. I sent a text. Hi, Alex. Everything okay? Can't wait to hear about the cafe. Love, Nina. No reply. I called, and it rang once before going to voicemail, his voice bright and familiar, asking me to leave a message. Strange. He always answered, even if it was just to say he was busy. I tried again. Voicemail. A cold knot formed in my stomach, tightening with each silent minute, a quiet dread creeping in. 10 o'clock. 11. Midnight. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker on, their glow casting long shadows across the room. I told myself he was busy, that the landlord had kept him late, that his phone had died, that there was a simple explanation. But the excuses felt thin, like paper tearing under pressure. And deep down, a fear was growing, a crack spreading across the foundation of everything I'd believed. I didn't sleep that night, my phone silent in my hands, my mind racing with questions I didn't want to face. I prayed it was a mistake, that he'd call any minute, laughing about some silly delay, his voice warm and reassuring, telling me everything was fine. Morning came, gray and heavy, the sun hidden behind clouds that matched the weight in my chest. I called again. Voicemail. The same cheerful message that now felt like a mockery. My hands trembled as I pulled on a sweater and jeans. My movements, robotic. My heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I ran to his apartment, a small rental in a brick building a few blocks away, the kind of place with peeling paint and a rusty mailbox. I knocked, then pounded, my knuckles stinging against the wood, my voice calling his name, desperate, pleading. No answer. An old man, a neighbor who always sat on his porch with a thermos of coffee and a newspaper, looked up, his eyes narrowing. "You looking for Alex?" he asked, his voice gruff, weathered by years of early mornings. I nodded, breathless, my throat tight, tears burning behind my eyes. He shook his head, his expression softening with something like pity. Saw him leave yesterday afternoon. Had a suitcase. Looked like he was gone for good. A suitcase. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing my breath, making my knees buckle. I leaned against the wall, the rough brick scraping my palm, the world tilting around me. He was gone. My money, my savings, my dream was gone with him. I felt my heart crack, a sharp, searing pain that spread through my chest, my vision blurring with tears I couldn't stop. He'd taken everything. Not just the money, but my trust, my hope, my belief in love, the future I'd built in my head, the one where we were together, laughing in our cafe, surrounded by flowers and books. I walked back to my apartment, my steps slow, like I was dragging myself through quicksand, each movement a struggle against the weight of what had happened. The town felt different, the trees duller, their leaves no longer vibrant but heavy, the air thick with a chill that seeped into my bones. The smiles of passers-by felt distant, like they belonged to a world I no longer understood. My apartment was cold, the flowers he'd given me last week still on the table, their petals curling, browning at the edges, their once bright colors faded, mocking me with their decay. I opened my bank book, the balance a fraction of what it had been, a number so small it felt like a slap. Years of saving, every early morning at the shop, every skipped coffee, every careful budget, every moment I'd chosen hope over ease, gone in a single afternoon. The cafe dream, the one I'd nurtured for so long, the one I'd poured my heart into, was shattered, its pieces too small to gather, too sharp to touch. I sank to the floor, my back against the wall, my knees pulled to my chest, and the pain came like a tidal wave, raw and relentless. I sobbed, loud and broken, the sound echoing in the empty room, my tears soaking my sleeves. I cried for my heart, for the future he'd stolen, for the trust he'd crushed, for the love I'd believed in with every fiber of my being. How could he do this? How could he look me in the eyes, tell me he loved me, plan a life with me, and lie? Was anything real? His job, his past, his feelings, the way he'd held me like I was precious? Had it all been a game, a calculated trick to take what little I had? I felt stupid, blind, utterly alone, like the world had turned its back and left me in a darkness I couldn't escape. The weeks that followed were a fog of grief, each day blending into the next, heavy and gray, a relentless cycle of waking, surviving, and collapsing into bed. Waking up was a battle, the weight of what happened pressing down like a stone on my chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to move. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, the cracks in the plaster like a map of my broken heart, willing myself to get up, to face another day without him, without my dream. The reality of it, Alex was gone, my money was gone, my future was gone, hit me anew each morning, fresh and sharp, like a wound that refused to heal, that bled every time I thought of him. I had to tell, without him, without my dream. The reality of it, Alex was gone, my money was gone, my future was gone, hit me anew each morning, fresh and sharp, like a wound that refused to heal, that bled every time I thought of him. I had to tell Mrs. Gable. I couldn't pursue our smaller dream of buying the flower shop together, a plan we'd discussed as a fallback if the cafe didn't work out. A quieter dream that had felt safe, achievable. Her face softened with understanding, her eyes kind, but tinged with disappointment, and it made me feel like I'd failed her, failed myself, failed the person I'd thought I could become. "It's okay, Nina," she said, her voice gentle, her hand resting on my shoulder. "You'll find your way." But I didn't believe her. Not then. I couldn't see a way forward, only the wreckage of what I'd lost. At work, I tried to act normal, to be the Nina everyone expected. Smiling, arranging flowers, answering questions about peonies or tulips, recommending colors for weddings or funerals. But inside, I was crumbling, my heart a fragile thing held together by sheer will, my thoughts a tangle of pain and questions. Every time the shop bell rang, my pulse spiked. A desperate, foolish hope that it was Alex, that he'd walk in with an explanation, a way to make this right, to stitch my world back together. But it was never him. Just a customer with a bright smile, or the mail carrier with a stack of bills, or the wind rattling the door, mocking my hope. People asked about him, their voices light, unaware of the knife they were twisting in my chest. "Where's that nice Alex? Haven't seen him around," they'd say, their eyes curious, expecting a simple answer. I'd mumble something about him leaving town for work, the lies heavy on my tongue, bitter as ash, shame burning in my chest. I felt exposed, like everyone could see how easily I'd been fooled, how I'd trusted someone who'd left me with nothing, how I'd been so naive, so blind. The shame was a weight, heavier than the grief, a constant whisper that I should have known better, that I should have seen the signs, that I was to blame for my own pain. My apartment became a prison, every corner steeped in memories of him, every object a reminder of what I'd lost. The chair where he'd sit, his legs stretched out, telling me about his day with that easy smile, the mug he'd used for coffee, still sitting on the counter, a faint ring of brown inside, like a ghost of his presence. The faint scent of his aftershave, lingering in the air, in the cushions, in the scarf he'd left behind, a scent that once made me feel safe, but now made my stomach churn. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a cardboard box, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and sorrow, and started gathering his things. Photos of us smiling by the creek, the water sparkling behind us, a scarf he'd left on the couch, soft and gray, a book of poems he'd given me, the pages crisp, a note inside in his neat handwriting. "To Nina, my favorite flower." Each item was a stab, a fresh wound, a reminder of the love I'd believed in, the future I'd trusted. I folded the memories away, my tears falling onto the cardboard, and pushed the box to the back of my closet, slamming the door shut with a force that rattled the frame. But it didn't erase him. He was still there, in the quiet moments, in the spaces where he used to be, in the questions that haunted me when I closed my eyes. Sleep was a struggle, my mind refusing to rest, replaying every moment, every conversation, searching for signs I'd missed, a hesitation in his voice, a glance that didn't match his words, a crack in the perfect facade he'd built. But all I could see was his smile, his warmth, the way he'd made me feel safe, loved, whole. The nightmares came when I did sleep. Alex holding my hand, his laugh bright, then turning cold, his eyes empty as he walked away, leaving me in a darkness that swallowed me whole. I'd wake with tears on my cheeks, my heart racing, the room too quiet, too empty, the silence a weight that pressed against my chest. Food lost its taste. I'd forced down bites of toast or soup, but it felt like swallowing ash, my appetite gone, my body moving on autopilot. The flowers in the shop, once my joy, seemed dull, their colors muted. Their scent no longer a comfort, but a reminder of the day he walked in, of the moment I let him into my life. I wondered if I'd ever see beauty the same way again, if I'd ever feel whole, if I'd ever trust my own heart after it had led me so wrong. I thought about going to the police, but what could I say? I'd given him the money willingly, my trust handed over as easily as a gift, wrapped in my love for him, tied with my belief in our future. There was no proof he'd stolen it, no evidence. Beyond his absence and my broken heart, no paper trail to follow. He'd been clever, I realized. Probably used a fake name, a fake story, a fake life, each detail crafted to draw me in, to make me believe. The thought made me feel smaller, more foolish, like I'd been a pawn in a game I didn't know I was playing, a naive girl who'd handed over everything because she wanted to believe in love. I replayed every moment, searching for the truth. I'd missed, but it was like chasing shadows. Nothing solid, nothing I could hold on to. The betrayal cut deeper because of that. Because I'd believed in him so completely. Because I'd let him see every part of me. Because I'd trusted him with my dreams, my heart, my future. Loneliness became my constant companion. A heavy, sharp thing that followed me everywhere. I'd been okay alone before Alex, used to my own company, content with my quiet life, my books, my flowers, my dreams. But this was different. This loneliness was born of betrayal, of knowing someone had chosen to hurt me, to take everything and leave me with nothing, to look me in the eyes and lie while I smiled back, unaware. It was the loneliness of a heart that had been opened wide and then slammed shut, the loneliness of a world that felt colder, harsher, less safe. I lost weight, my clothes hanging loose, my face pale in the mirror, my eyes shadowed like I was fading away. Mrs. Gable noticed, her worry quiet but clear, her presence a steady anchor in the storm. She'd leave food in the shop's back room, a bowl of vegetable soup, a sandwich wrapped in foil, a slice of her famous peach pie, with a gentle, "You need to eat, Nina." Her kindness was a lifeline, a small light in the darkness. But I felt too broken to grab it fully, too lost to believe I deserved it. One afternoon, I sat by the creek, the water moving slowly, reflecting a sky heavy with clouds, gray and endless. I felt like a shadow of myself, lost in thoughts of what I'd done wrong, how I'd missed the truth, how I'd let myself be fooled. My hands twisted in my lap, my nails digging into my palms, the pain a small distraction from the ache in my chest. An elderly woman, Mrs. Petrova, sat on a nearby bench, her knitting needles clicking softly, a ball of soft blue yarn in her lap, her fingers moving with the ease of years of practice. I'd seen her around town, always with her knitting, always, with a kind word for anyone who passed by. She glanced at me, her eyes kind behind her glasses, wrinkles framing her face like a map of a life well lived. "Heartbreak is a heavy stone, child," she said, her voice soft as the yarn in her hands, steady and sure. "But you're stronger than it. You don't have to carry it forever. You'll find a way to set it down." She smiled, small and warm, her needles never pausing, and went back to her knitting, the soft click-click, a quiet rhythm in the stillness. Her words stayed with me, echoing in the quiet parts of my mind like a seed planted in cracked, barren soil. Strong? I didn't feel strong. I felt weak, empty, like the best parts of me had been stolen, like I was nothing but the shell of the girl I'd been. But maybe she was right. Maybe strength wasn't about never feeling pain, never breaking, never falling. Maybe it was about surviving it, about getting up even when you felt like you couldn't, about finding a way to keep going, one breath at a time. That evening, I did something different. Instead of sitting in the dark, staring at the walls, letting the silence swallow me whole, I pulled out my mom's old cookbook. It was worn, the pages yellowed, the spine cracked from years of use, the cover stained with splashes of batter and smudges of butter. It was filled with her handwritten notes, little hearts next to her favorite recipes, tips like add extra vanilla for love or stir with a wooden spoon for luck. Words that felt like a hug from across the years. I flipped to a recipe for apple muffins, simple and familiar, something she'd made when I was a kid. The smell filling our house with warmth, with safety, with the kind of love that didn't ask for anything in return. I gathered ingredients, my hands moving on instinct, measuring flour, slicing apples, stirring in cinnamon and sugar, the motions slow and deliberate, like a meditation, like a prayer. As the muffins baked, the smell filled my apartment, sweet and cozy, wrapping around me like a blanket, chasing away the cold. I ate a muffin, still warm from the oven, the crumbs soft on my tongue, the apples tart and sweet, and it tasted good. Really good. Like a small piece of comfort I'd forgotten I could find. Like a memory of a time when the world felt kind. When I felt whole. It was a tiny act, baking those muffins, but it felt like a shift, a crack in the wall I'd built around myself, a flicker of light in the darkness. It was the first time in weeks I'd done something not just to survive, but to live. Even a little. To feel a spark of joy. However small. That small spark grew slowly, like a seed taking root in stubborn, rocky ground, pushing through the cracks with quiet determination. I started baking more, following my mom's recipes, losing myself in the rhythm of it. Cinnamon rolls sticky with glaze, their spirals golden and warm. Lemon cake with a tart bite that made my lips pucker, chocolate chip cookies that crumbled. Just right, the chocolate melting on my tongue. The process was calming, grounding, a way to anchor myself in the present, to focus on something I could control. I'd measure ingredients with care, the soft clink of the measuring cups a steady sound. Stir batter until it was smooth. Watch the ovens glow as the kitchen warmed, the windows fogging slightly from the heat. My apartment began to feel like home again, the emptiness softened by the smell of sugar and spice, the sound of a timer ticking softly, the warmth of the oven chasing away the chill. I'd sit at my small table, a plate of fresh-baked cookies in front of me, and feel a quiet pride, a sense that I was creating something good, something real, even if it was just for myself. I brought some of my treats to the shop, sharing them, with Mrs. Gable, who'd been my quiet supporter through it all, her presence a steady anchor in the storm. "Nina, you've got a real talent," she said, her eyes lighting up as she tasted a slice of lemon cake, the crumbs falling onto her apron, her smile wide and genuine. "This is better than anything we sell here, better than anything I've tasted in years." Her words, simple as they were, warmed me, like a small validation that I still had something to offer, that I wasn't just the girl who'd been betrayed, who'd lost everything. They gave me a flicker of confidence, a reminder that I could still create, still bring joy, still be more than my pain. One day, a customer noticed the cookies I'd left on the counter, a batch of oatmeal raisin I'd baked the night before, the edges golden and crisp, the raisins plump and sweet. "Did you make these?" she asked, her voice curious, a smile tugging at her lips as she peered at the pile. I nodded, shy, unsure, my cheeks flushing. "Can I buy some?" she asked, already reaching for her purse. I was stunned, but said, "Yes," wrapping half a dozen in wax paper, my hands fumbling with the tape, my heart racing with a mix of nerves and excitement. She came back the next day, asking for more, her enthusiasm catching me off guard, her smile bright as she told me how much her kids had loved them. Soon, other customers started noticing, their eyes lighting up when they saw the small pile of treats by the register, their voices eager. "Are those Nina's cookies?" they'd ask, already reaching for their wallets, some even asking if I could make something special for a birthday or a party. Mrs. Gable suggested a sign, "Nina's Homemade Treats," written in chalk on in show, a small board propped up next to a vase of sunflowers, the letters looping and cheerful. It started small, just a few cookies, a cake or two each day, nothing grand, but people loved them. They'd walk out with a bouquet and a bag of treats, their faces bright with satisfaction, some stopping to tell me how much they'd enjoyed them, how the cookies reminded them of their grandmother's kitchen, or how the cake had been the hit of a family dinner. Seeing that, hearing their compliments, it felt like I was giving something good to the world again, not just drowning in what I'd lost, not just surviving, but creating, connecting, mattering. It wasn't the cafe, not the grand dream I'd built with Alex, but it was something, and it was mine, built from my own hands, my own heart, my own refusal to let him take everything. Baking became my anchor, a lifeline that pulled me through the days, a way to find meaning in the small things. I'd spend evenings planning recipes, budgeting for ingredients, experimenting with flavors, chocolate chip with a pinch of sea, salt, blueberry scones with a lemon glaze that made my mouth water, shortbread dusted with powdered sugar that melted on the tongue. I'd lose myself in the process, the world fading away as I measured flour, cracked eggs, stirred batter, the soft clink of spoons and bowls, a quiet music. It gave me focus, a reason to get up, a way to fill the hours that used to be consumed by thoughts of Alex, by the questions that circled like vultures, picking at my wounds. He still crept into my mind, especially at night when the world was quiet and my defenses were down, when the darkness made it easy to slip back into the pain. Why did he do it? How could he lie so easily, so convincingly, for so long? Did he ever care at all, even a little? Or was I just a mark, a naive girl he saw as an easy target? Was every smile, every touch, every word a lie? Or was there ever a moment when he meant it? The hurt was still there, a dull ache that flared without warning, a scar that throbbed when I brushed against it. But it didn't control me anymore. Those thoughts shared space with other things. The satisfaction of a perfect batch of cookies, the pride of a customer's smile, the quiet rhythm of my life moving forward. One small step at a time, one recipe at a time. I started saving again, tiny amounts at first, coins and small bills from my cookie sales, each deposit a small act of defiance, a refusal to let Alex's betrayal define my future. I'd walk to the bank, the envelope of cash in my hand, and deposit it into my future account, the one I'd once called my cafe fund, the one that had once held my dreams. It wasn't for a cafe anymore. That dream felt too big, too scarred by what happened, too tangled with his lies. This was for me, for security, for knowing I could stand on my own, that I didn't need someone else to make my life whole, that I could build something new, something mine. I opened up more, too, letting people back into my life bit by bit. I'd talk to Mrs. Gable about her garden, the roses she was trying to coax into blooming, the way she'd smile when she talked about her late husband's love for sunflowers. I'd chat with customers about their days, their kids, their plans for the weekend, their stories pulling me out of my own head. I even started joking with the people in my pottery class, a hobby I'd picked up a year ago, where my lopsided bowls and wobbly mugs were a running gag, the clay cool and forgiving under my hands. I'd pushed everyone away after Alex, scared of their pity, their questions, scared they'd see the shame I carried, the failure I felt. But small conversations about the rain, a new book, a recipe, the way the creek looked at sunset, made me feel connected again, like I wasn't as alone as I'd thought, like the world wasn't as cold as it had seemed. One evening, I pulled the box of Alex's things from the closet. I hadn't looked at it in months, but I felt ready, or at least ready to try, to face the pieces of him I'd hidden away. I sat on the floor, the box in front of me, and sifted through the contents. A photo of us by the creek, both smiling, the water sparkling behind us, our hands intertwined, a note he'd written on a napkin. To Nina, my favorite flower, the ink slightly smudged. A book of poems he'd given me, the pages crisp, untouched since the day he left. A bookmark tucked inside with a doodle of a sunflower. It hurt, like pressing a bruise, like touching a wound that hadn't fully healed. But it didn't break me, not like it would have before. I saw a girl in those photos, one who trusted too easily, who didn't see the truth, who believed in love with every fiber of her being, who gave her heart without hesitation. I felt sad for her, for the pain she'd endured. But I was also proud. She'd survived. She was still here, still standing, still finding her way. I didn't throw the box away, but I didn't need to hide it anymore. I closed the lid, placed it back on the shelf and felt a quiet release, like I'd let go of something heavy, like I'd taken a step toward freedom. Life didn't become perfect, and I didn't expect it to. Sadness still came, sneaking in on quiet nights when the world was still, when the silence left too much room for memories, or when I saw a couple holding hands, their ease a reminder of what I'd lost, of the love I'd thought was mine. I was cautious now, wary of trusting too quickly, of letting anyone too close too soon, my heart guarded but not locked away. Alex left scars, but scars are proof of healing, aren't they? They show you made it through something hard, that you're stronger than the thing that tried to break you, that you've stitched yourself back together, thread by thread. I learned trust is a delicate thing. Giving it away too fast can burn. You can leave you hollow, but locking it up forever is its own kind of prison, a lonely one that keeps the world at bay. I decided to be careful, to listen to my instincts, to value actions over sweet words, to take my time with people, to let trust grow slowly, like a flower that needs sun and care to bloom. But I wouldn't close my heart completely, wouldn't let fear define me. That felt like letting Alex win, letting him take more than he already had, letting him steal the part of me that still believed in goodness, in connection, in hope, in the possibility of a life filled with love and light. My dream changed too, reshaped by the pain, by the lessons, by the person I was becoming. The big cafe with books and flowers, the one I'd built in my mind with Alex, felt distant, a vision tainted by his betrayal, a dream that carried too much of him to feel fully mine. But maybe I could build something smaller, something real, something that belonged only to me. Nina's Homemade Treats was growing. Customers asked for my baked goods by name, some bringing friends to try. Them, others, asking if I could make something special for a birthday or a wedding. Mrs. Gable suggested I sell at the local market someday, maybe even open a tiny shop, just a counter and a few tables, where I could sell cookies and cakes alongside the shop's flowers, where I could create a space that was warm and welcoming, even if it wasn't the grand cafe I'd once imagined. I could see it taking shape, slowly. A small space with a glass case of treats, a chalkboard sign with daily specials, a vase of daisies by the register, the air filled with the smell of sugar and coffee. It was a new dream, quieter, safer, born from my own hands, my own effort, my own healing, my own refusal to let the past define me. It wasn't the vision I'd started with, but it was enough, and it felt true, like a seed I could nurture, a future I could build on my own terms. Alex took my money, my first big dream, my trust for a while, my belief in love and goodness. But he didn't take everything. Couldn't take everything, no matter how hard he tried. He didn't take my ability to bake, to create something that made people smile, to pour love into flour and sugar and butter, to find joy in the simple act of making something good. He didn't take Mrs. Gable's kindness, her quiet support, the way she'd leave food for me or praise my lemon cake like it was the best thing she'd ever tasted, the way she'd look at me with pride like I was more than my mistakes. He didn't take Mrs. Petrova's wisdom, those simple words that helped me see my strength, that reminded me I could carry the stone of heartbreak and still move forward, still find my way. He didn't take the scent of flowers, the feel of dough under my fingers, the warmth of an oven, the taste of a muffin baked with care, the way the petals of a rose felt soft against my skin. He didn't take the way the creek sparkled at dusk, the sound of laughter in the shop, the soft glow of fairy lights in my apartment, the way the world kept turning, offering small beauties even when I felt broken. He didn't take my pottery. Class! The clay cool and forgiving under my hands, the laughter of my classmates as we shaped our wobbly creations. He didn't take the memory of my mom's voice, her recipes, her love that lived in every note she'd written, every heart she'd drawn. Most importantly, he didn't take me. Nina, the girl who loves flowers, who dares to dream, who learned to keep going even when her heart was broken, who found sweetness in the bitter, light in the dark, strength in the places she thought were weak. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see the lines of sadness, the shadows of what happened, the traces of a girl who trusted too much, who loved too fiercely, who believed in a future that wasn't meant to be. But I also see strength. a quiet resilience I didn't know I had, a spark that refused to go out, a heart that's still beating, still hoping, still open to the world, even if it's cautious now. I'm still Nina, 29, living in Willow Creek. My life's simple but richer now, because I know I can weather storms, because I've seen the darkness and found my way back to the light. I know sweetness can follow bitterness. That light can find its way back, that no one can take my spirit unless I let them. I'm not where I thought I'd be. No cafe, no Alex, no easy happily ever after, no grand story to tell. But I'm here. And I'm enough. And that's more than he could ever take. More than he could ever touch. If you've been hurt like this, if someone took your trust, your dreams, your heart, your belief in goodness, I want you to know that the pain is real. And it's okay to feel it, to let it wash over you, to cry, to question, to wonder what you did wrong. It's okay to feel broken for a while, to feel like the world has betrayed you, to feel like you'll never trust again. But it's not the end of your story, not unless you let it be. Lean on the small things that bring comfort. A kind word from a friend, a warm drink on a cold morning, the smell of something baking, the sound of a favorite song, the feel of sun on your face. Be patient with yourself, gentle with your heart. Heal slowly, one day at a time, one breath at a time. Find small joys, maybe bake some muffins, plant a flower, write a sentence, take a walk, listen to the birds, watch the sky change colors. You are stronger than you think, stronger than the stone of heartbreak, stronger than the person who tried to break you, stronger than the pain that tried to define you. You can rebuild piece by piece, dream by dream, hope by hope. Don't give up on yourself. Keep going, one step at a time, one moment at a time, and you'll find your way forward to a place where the world feels bright again, where your heart feels whole, where you know you are enough.